Hey, we've all been there. Saturday night, box of popcorn in one hand, soda in the other, sat on your couch, ready to watch that latest blockbuster movie. What do? Get your remote out, stick on Netflix and you're good to go, right? Hell, you haven't even got to leave your house anymore. But it might be worth remembering, things haven't always been this way. So let's go back to the 1980s. Hey, remember those days? You actually had to leave your own home to go down to your local video store? Blockbusters, remember them? You'd search the aisles full of video cassettes for that latest movie. And there it was, right in front of you. And as you go to grab it, wait, there's something not quite right here. The box is a little bit short. It's a Betamax copy. I'd better leave that one alone. What you would not have realised at that time, you were in the middle of one of the biggest format wars ever to be fought. Betamax versus VHS. And we know that VHS was triumphant. But how did it happen? I'm gonna tell you. You know them great big spools of videotape? They've been around since the 1950s. But guess what? The first proper consumer-based video cassette tape was not released until 1971 by that huge company we all know today as Sony. Sony named their new video cassette format U-matic. Unsurprisingly, it didn't catch on. And the major drawback? The price. If I can put that into some kind of perspective, in today's money, to buy the cassette player, you'd be looking at about £7,000. I just want to point out here, I'm bloody old and I don't even remember the U-matic. So that one must have slipped under the bloody radar. Now while the U-matic video cassette system was used as a professional format, Sony were developing their latest video cassette format, the Betamax. And hey, it has been said Sony shared a little bit too much information with one of their competing rivals, JVC, the Japanese Victor company. Now JVC were not interested in Betamax. They were developing their own format, which we all know today as the VHS tape. But regardless, Sony were the first company to deliver their Betamax format to the consumer in 1975, and they strived to make the Betamax the standard format. 2 years later, in 1977, JVC launched their rival format, the VHS tape. And I can tell you, by the year 1980, JVC controlled 80% of the US market with their VHS cassette tape. So despite Sony having a 2-year head start over their rival JVC, what was it that made people adopt the VHS tape over the Betamax? Now while life is not straightforward, there are many factors which contributed towards VHS being adopted over the Betamax. While I can't go into them all, I will just focus on a few of them. And the biggest one of all, recording time. The VHS tape could hold 4 hours on a single tape. The Betamax, 1 hour. So if you wanted to record that live football game, Betamax just wasn't going to cut it. And while Sony did improve the runtime on their tapes later on, it was already too late. And there's one other little thing to remember here. Adult movies had become readily available on VHS tapes. Sony, it has been said, would not allow this on their Betamax tapes. You be the judge of that one. And another big factor to realise here, Sony's Betamax was by far the more superior video cassette format. The reason they didn't catch on was because their marketing campaign was primarily focused on their technical specifications and superiority to VHS. The problem was, people back in those days didn't have fancy TV sets. So if you put a side-by-side comparison of a VHS tape to a Betamax tape, the average consumer wasn't even going to notice the difference. But because of the runtime on the VHS, more people took on that format, and obviously the price came down. And as the VHS price came down, Betamax's price stayed high. So obviously the consumer was going to go with a VHS, and that was the death of Sony. And by 1988, it was curtains. Sony conceded and took on the VHS format under license from JVC. Now, despite between the years 2007 and 2011, Sony fought another format war, which was the HD DVD Blu-ray war. But it has to be said, the Betamax VHS format war was by far the biggest and longest there has ever been. Adios.